culture, like the place we're living, let's say the States or Germany or whatever?
You know, I don't think anyone really has the right to tell anyone else how to choose who they are and how they identify themselves. If you ask me, am I Jewish? Look, I'm an atheist, and I'm secular, and I don't know anything about the Jewish religion or much about Jewish history, to tell you the truth. But of course I'm Jewish. Why am I Jewish? Because, you know, Finkelstein, if I came in and I said I'm Italian, no. People will laugh at you, right? Finkelstein, Jewish. So I don't want to be laughed at. So okay, so I'm Jewish, you know. I don't think, you know, we have to strive very hard to figure out ways to be tolerant of each other and not try to define other people, who they are, you know. Let people be what they want to be. So long, you know, with the usual, they aren't harming others. Let people be what they want to be. I don't get excited about these issues. I don't care if you call yourself a Zionist. Call yourself whatever you want. I just want to know, do you think it's right to blow up a person's house? Is that right? You know, that's what you have to confront people with. And not get so caught up with the ideologies thing. You know, they started this afternoon with the Zionists, you know. The funny thing is, the people who they talk about as being Zionists, they're not Zionists. Zionism means a commitment to an idea. Most of the people who they call Zionists, they're just complete opportunists. It was popular once to be pro-Israel, so they became Zionists. Tomorrow they'll take their mother and throw it up. Are they putting any earthly pleasures behind by being Zionists? Alan Dershowitz, is he making a sacrifice by being? No, it's not being a Zionist. It's not a commitment to an idea. I know Dershowitz's history pretty well. Before 1967, he never wrote a word about Israel.
And about the Holocaust.
Wrote the Holocaust.
Yeah, exactly.
He never, he says in his own book, when I grew up, there was not one conversation I remember, not one, on the Nazi Holocaust. And nothing about Israel. They never visited Israel. He never claimed to. Look at Dershowitz's stuff. Does he ever say he went to Israel before 67? No. They're not Zionists. And that's what people don't understand. They think you're Jewish, you must be a Zionist, unless you say you're not a Zionist. No. You're Jewish, you're in the United States. There are great opportunities in the United States. If you're Jewish, you want to make money, you want a prestigious career. That's what you're looking for, earthly pleasures, earthly success. You're not a Zionist. That's why the whole term is so misleading. It's not just that it doesn't mean anything anymore. It's just misleading because you're portraying these people as being ideologically committed to something. They're not committed to anything except their careers and their bank accounts. That's what they're committed to. You're completely misunderstanding who these people are. Paul Wolfowitz, well, they don't care about Israel. Paul Wolfowitz was in every American administration since Gerald Ford, except for the Clinton administration when he was at Johns Hopkins. He was in he was in Nixon, then Ford, then Carter. He was in Bush 1. They don't care who's in charge, just as long as they can taste a little power. Wolfowitz is a classic opportunist. He doesn't care about anything except power. And then they make this whole thing, he's a neoconservative working for Israel. It's just crazy. It's to totally misunderstand these people. They're not interested in ideas or ideology. They're interested in making it. And they love, like most people do, they love, the famous line by Henry Kissinger, power is the ultimate aphrodisiac. They love power, It's a complete misunderstanding. It's not only that it's alienating because it's jargon, and it's not only that it's wrong because what does it even mean to be a Zionist now? It doesn't mean anything. It's just completely misleading because it misunderstands who you're up against. You're not up against ideological fanatics. You're up against people who care about earthly pleasures. That's what they're about.
So, just like maybe for me, I think it will be the last question. Regarding to the Holocaust, you know, because in your book about the industry of the Holocaust, you say like between 48 and 67, nobody was talking about the Holocaust. Even in Israel, I mean, the few Jews, they knew what was going on. And what I know that it was from Eichmann, when they saw it was a powerful tool to use against
Eichmann was basically an effort by Ben-Gurion to create national unity in Israel. He thought the Eichmann trial would be a way to stir a national identity, because Israel was a very diverse place at that point, Jews coming from all over the place. And so he saw it as a vehicle to create a national identity. And the United States, it was, I know because my parents were in the Nazi Holocaust, and growing up, nobody was interested in it. Nobody ever asked me a single question about what happened to my parents. None of my friends ever asked my parents. None of my friends' parents asked my parents. It's funny because, it's how the world has changed. When we were growing up, if your parents were Holocaust survivors, you were supposed to be embarrassed. Because at that time, it was said the Jews went like sheep to slaughter. And if you survived, the assumption was you must have done something very dirty to survive. So the question always used to be, how did you survive? And my mother hated that question because there was the implication you must have done something dirty to survive. That was the attitude towards survivors then. You're supposed to be ashamed if your parents were survivors. It all changed when the Holocaust became an industry and it became useful for Israel.
Yeah, it's still in Europe, I guess, no? Because
Europe is a little different because it did happen here.
Yeah.
So there is an element of guilt. But not, Omar was mistaken on one point. Germany is very far from hopeless. Public opinion in Germany has turned very sharply against Israel.
Yeah.
There was an article yesterday that Merkel is becoming hysterical because the polls are showing that the last poll showed that I think it was 60-something% of Germans said, we have no special responsibility to Israel. That's what they said. It was a shocker. Just like the polls, 61% or 63% of American Jews said, we don't care if Ahmadinejad is Hitler, and we don't care if he's planning the second Holocaust. We don't want a war with Iran. And you know why they said that? Because American Jews are very vocal. American Jewish organizations, not Jews, American Jewish organizations were very vocal in supporting the attack on Iraq. And when the attack on Iraq went badly, who did they start to whisper was responsible? American Jews got very